Where is she getting you after?
Like it. You look great. I mean, it's bedhead. If that's what you're going for, Beneil, you've achieved it.
Yeah. I was supposed to get a haircut this week.
Well, it's okay. Hey, listen, the other day you told me in our pre-fight interview, you said you wouldn't know what went wrong against Chiesa until you got in there tonight. So now have you figured it out? And if so, what was it?
Spirit, fighting spirit. I felt like the difference was focus, but it was also the fighting spirit, just wanting to be there. I think I was lacking that, and thank God it's back.
Is that because, you were on a hot streak there with the 5-fight win streak? Were you just getting complacent and used to winning and the loss shook it up?
I really don't know. There's a lot of things going on. I had a gym coming, but this is not an excuse. That night, Chiesa was the better man. He came in with more focus. I think you could see it. After the first round, he came out stronger than I did. That just tells you that he had more fighting spirit. And sometimes your technique can be there, your intelligence is there, your movement is correct, but when you start losing that spirit, things start going the wrong way. It wasn't a fatigue issue with Chiesa. I just think he had more fighting spirit, and this time I was redeemed. I came with the fighting spirit.
Nice. Well, Vick is obviously such a lanky guy. Did that give you any issues when you were in there with him?
I'm getting all these lanky
I know,
guys.
Michael.
I had Michael and now James. Honestly, the goal was to close the distance, so it was kind of tricky with him. I was making sure to use the body kicks to keep him from going to my left, his right, and then when he moved to his right, making sure I step there first so I can cut him off with the overhand. I can hit him hard. But at the same time, it's still so difficult with a guy like that. He took so many good shots, and he just kept coming back. I was expecting a second round. I really was. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it looked like you were very close to finishing. So was there any sense at all that you obviously didn't feel him break then, right? Because he kept staying in the game.
No, he got back up, and he got back up with vengeance. He need me in the body. He was looking for things. I was thinking to myself, if I stay in the clinch with him, it's just not going to end the way I want it to end. We're going to go to the second round. I was expecting the second round just because, but I figured let me try to hurt him again. So I pulled out of the clinch and looked for one more left hand, and that was the one that finished it.
You guys got scolded a bit for the eye pokes. Can you talk us through that? How did that feel? How bad were they? And, did you think that was appropriate that you were both getting scolded for that?
The first one, he got me pretty good, and then the second one, he kind of just rubbed the inside of my eye. The second one wasn't as bad, I'll be honest, but I was kind of scared from the first one. So I kind of have to see them again, to be honest. I was trying to look up at the big screen. I didn't get a good look. The first one really bothered me. The second one kind of had me wincing, but I didn't even realize I poked him in the eye. So, yeah, it's an accident. I'm sure it was an accident on his part, too.
So, Beneil, who would you like next then? Obviously, you got over that speed bump of the loss to Chiesa, and that was a quick turnaround for you. How quickly could you go again, and is there a name you'd want?
At this point, I really don't know. For this last fight, what I did was I went home and I prayed to see what would be next for me. I'm going to do the same again, and whatever's there, I'll take it.
El Kukui is taking on Chiesa next. How do you think that fight's going to go?
It'll be an interesting fight, just because we've seen El Kukui struggle with Danny Castillo because of the takedowns. So, and Chiesa has good takedowns, and that could make it an interesting fight. But I think he has a big advantage in the stand-up. So, if you're thinking about predictions, I don't know.
But RDA is going to win his fight.
Oh man, RDA. You know what's funny? We did like a light sparring on this Monday, and I had a black eye from him. It just went away maybe yesterday or this morning. So I'm going with RDA against anybody at this point.
Kelvin Gastelum was in here a little while ago, and he said that the two of you put in a lot of work together over at King. So what do you make of Kelvin these days? And he really seems to be on this path of, I don't want to say reinvention, but really growing into a full, well-rounded fighter.
I think Kelvin's awesome. One of the things I've noticed about Kelvin is he's constantly improving. He can learn from anybody. He's not one of those guys where he's like, I have to make sure this guy's teaching me, or I have to make sure I go to this guy. He comes, if we're able to do something to him, he wants to learn it. And I think his striking is moving up pretty quick. His hands are so fast. It's really impressive to see a guy who moves his hands that fast. And I'm excited to get back in the gym to help him get ready for his fight, help Hoffa get ready for their fights, especially Kelvin because he's fighting a southpaw. But I'll do my best for Hoffa, and we have Enrique too. He's fighting Sage Northcutt. We have Arthur, a friend of mine from King's Fight. So we have a lot of guys. I have to get back in the gym on Monday.
Was part of the way in which you got over Chiesa was agreeing to a fight on short notice to just get back into a camp and hope to erase that memory since it wasn't that long ago, less than 2 months ago.
Like I said earlier, I went back and I prayed, and it just felt like the right thing to do is take a fight right away. And I told my manager Ali, I told Master Rafael Cordero, and they both said, "Yep, let's do it. We need a fight right away." And maybe a week later, I had a fight. So that was what was behind it. And of course, that terrible feeling from a loss, I don't want that. So it was nice getting rid of that. But it never really goes away because you made that mistake.
Was the feeling even worse because it was a submission?
It was. It really was, to be honest, because I did something a white belt in jiu-jitsu does. I gave my back, and I let him get up. I just assumed I was going to be able to escape from whatever he tries to do. And I gave him my back, and he submitted me, and it was horrible.
Have you watched it?
Multiple times.
Is it tough?
It doesn't get easier. I'm still waiting for the day it gets easier.
And just curious, last night obviously Muhammad Ali passed away, and I'm wondering, as a fighter who's about to compete 24 hours later, how do you internalize that? What was that like for you?
I was watching some of his interviews. They asked him, what do you want to do after boxing? And he has this great, amazing interview. He says, I want to get to heaven. I want to work my way up to heaven. So, he talks about how much time you spend at work. He talks about how much you do this, you do that, and it takes up maybe 60 years of your life. So he says, what are you going to do with that 20 years? And he's like, and he says for him, for the next 16 years, my goal is to work so God sees me and I can go to heaven.
Wow.
It's one of my favorite interviews ever.
Did you feel emotional, inspired? You're about to compete in front of the world. You're about to fight, which is, what he did so well for so many years. I mean, just as a fighter doing that now in the evolution of fighting, did it give you an extra pep in your step, or was it just you taking that all in?
It was just seeing the interview. It just brought us kind of back. It makes the world kind of bigger again because we make fighting our whole world. It surrounds us and it occupies everything we do. But he reminded me that this is just a short while. This isn't my life. This isn't a lifetime for me. I'm not going to be doing this when I'm 50. I'm maybe not even, I may have 10 more years left. So it reminded me that this life is short, and I need to prioritize better.
Congrats. Go ahead.
How was the speaking of pep in the step? How was the new weight cutting weigh-in procedures for you?
I like it. Weighing in at 10 a.m. It's great because typically we weigh in at 4 o'clock, but we have to be on weight by 12 because we leave at 1. They have to do some medical things. It gets tricky. We don't want to be late for the weigh-ins, so it's cool. I hit 156 at 9:45. I weighed in at 10:15. 30 minutes of being dehydrated, done and over with, and I was back to hydrating myself. So I loved it.
Did it feel different today, the actual fight, or is it more about yesterday?
More about yesterday. I never feel the weight cut bothers me too much. I think I have a pretty good program as far as rehydrating.
Did most of the fighters seem to be weighing in as early as they could?
Everybody loves it. Every fighter. I haven't met a fighter that I don't think I'm going to meet a fighter that says he doesn't like it. Maybe Gunnar Nelson because he doesn't believe in cutting weight, but so far everybody.
But was everybody lining up at 10 o'clock?
Everybody was there at 10 a.m. Yeah, actually we had a line at 10 a.m. That's why I weighed in at 10:15 because there was a line.
What do you think of the weigh-in 6 hours later? Now you're obviously hydrated, but going through the whole routine.
So I'm going through the routine and thinking to myself, I'm actually enjoying this. I'm looking forward to the face-off. Yeah. So I loved it.
Do you hope that every state now adopts this?
I hope so. I've heard news that the UFC wants to do this, Dana wants to do this. I really hope so. It makes sense too. It's healthier for the guys. I understand it's important to make sure they're not cutting too much weight because of the health risks. So whatever procedures they have to do to maintain that, I'm with it. Let's do it. Whatever you guys got to do beforehand to examine us, let's do that. I'm ready for that.
Speaking of the weight, you mentioned before that you don't think you would ever fight Rafael. So what happens, if he keeps his title in July, and how much longer do you think he would be there where you guys would be on a path for each other, where you'd have to move?
So I didn't think this question was going to come up after the loss to Vick. I'm not Vick, but Chiesa. And honestly, if it's one of those things, once I'm there, if it's not working, if we have to fight each other, I'm going to 170. I don't even want to put that pressure on Hoffa. I have no problem fighting at 170. They're big boys, but I seem to get all the big boys anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Beneil.